Hi, so we're looking at key area 6, social behaviour in sustainability and interdependence. First question has to be, why be in a group at all? Okay, so for animals that could be twos or it could be several thousands. If you think of some social insects like termites and ants, they have colonies of thousands. And there are lots of advantages, so otherwise it wouldn't be happening. So this could be things like protection. It could improve your hunting and foraging. It could be for finding mates. Could be for raising young. That's really important for primates, which we're going to look at specifically later. And what it means though is that you need to be able to communicate, and you need to be able to communicate with that group. So your group that you communicate with will have social signals, and these are going to be very specific behavioural adaptations that you need to have, and quite often this involves a lot of learning. Again, I'm going to look at that in terms of primates later. Inside your group you often have what's called a social hierarchy, and that's kind of obvious in a way. What you have is a rank, and within the group for every individual you will have effectively top dog and then working your way down, and the higher rank dominates all the subordinate ranks, and then within that each one will have subordinates till you get to the very, very bottom where you don't. So deciding how you actually rank is all to do with particular displays. Now in birds you may have heard of this ranking. This is called pecking order, and it literally means who gets to peck who. And if you're at the top, then everything underneath you would basically be subordinate and would accept being pecked at. Anything higher than you doesn't. So you could do this as a problem solving, and it's come up as a problem solving question in higher. Deciding the order is basically all about who backs down. In mammals, so an example would be like wolves, you have an established alpha male and alpha female, and quite often you look and you see betas as well, so that would be the next in line, and then you've got a whole pile of subordinates. And making that actually work as a pack involves a whole series of particular behaviours that are clear signals, and these are ritualised threats. They're not necessarily ready to fight, but they are looking like they are, and then the behaviour from the next animal will tell you whether they are going to keep pushing it or whether they're going to back down and say, yeah, okay, you're higher up than I am. And they're quite obvious signals that we would even recognise. So obviously looking scary, and then obviously looking a little bit submissive. If you use a hierarchy, then you have a lot of advantages that goes with it. If you use a hierarchy, then it means that the aggression between the members is minimised. Because it's a ritualised threat display, it means that you're not actually going to have a real fight, and if you don't have a real fight, you're avoiding injury, and that's important because injury means that you're less effective, especially for predators in terms of hunting. For conserving energy, that's also important, because if you're not fighting, you're not fighting, and that means you're not wasting energy. And there is also a look to what the social group has decided is the best individual. That one that they are taking as the highest ranking would be considered to be the best in that group, and that's most likely to be the one that you're going to have the most breeding from, but sometimes the only breeding from, and so the best genes are passed on. Ultimately, everything comes down to a cost-benefit equation. If you are going to get some food, there are costs to it. Foraging, which is just finding, hunting if you're a predator, so catching it, and then any preparation you need to do to make it ready to eat. So for predators that might involve ripping off a bit of skin to get to meat underneath it. For herbivores that might involve stripping leaves off trees, folding them in particular ways, anything which involves the energy required to just get it into your system. Okay, once it's in your system and you break it down, you actually get energy out from the food. But if those benefits don't outweigh the costs, you have a problem, because in the short term you didn't get enough energy. In the longer term, that might be the end of you. If you're a predator, being part of a group gives you a boost to your hunting success. It means that you can use two strategies that are not that possible or not as easy by yourself. An ambush strategy. So one predator startles the prey and in a particular direction, and other predators can then ambush them. Running them down means that you can take over. So one predator can be chasing the prey. As it tires, another one can take over, and this will allow you to run down an animal that normally would have been able to outlast a single predator. And this all feeds down to the cost benefit. How does it actually help the economics of it? Well, everyone gets a share, and that will be by rank order though. You can take down much larger prey than you could on your own, and there's less chance of injury. And all of these things means that you get overall more benefit to the cost. On the flip side of this, if you're a prey animal, then groups can be really useful for defence. There is a safety in numbers thing about this. Basically, you are less likely to be attacked even if you're in a bigger group. And there's also things called defensive formations. So by safety in numbers, there is just being part of a big group is sometimes enough. If you're in a large group, predators are going to look at that and think, well, there's more chance of injury, maybe less likely to catch. If you're in a group, it also means that you can set lookouts, that you can protect the younger or the smaller individuals. You can attack back a larger attacker if on your own you couldn't, and you could use defensive formations. So what I mean by defensive formations are, for example, this is the muskox, will form a circle, the stronger individuals will be facing outwards, and if you have young, then they would be right in the middle of it. Quails, they roost in circles facing out the way, so if they're disturbed at all by an attacker, then they all fly off in different directions and it's completely confusing for the attacker. And another example here, baboons. They have a social hierarchy and then they have jobs at each level. So you have lookouts, you have defenders, you have scouts, and all of this helps them to be more safe. Okay, and that's us for social behaviour.